Hi, I'm Anita Grenier, and today I'm going to show you how to make homemade sweet potato prosciutto stuffed ravioli from scratch. Now we are going to cheat just a little bit. We're going to make our dough by hand, but we're going to use our KitchenAid pasta maker to roll out the dough, to make the dough the strip. You can do that by hand, the rolling pin and the whole ball of wax, but we're going to go ahead and use our KitchenAid today. So what you're going to need for this recipe is, you need 2 large sweet potatoes, and what you're going to do is cook these. You can do them in the microwave for like 10 minutes, or you can do them in the stove, in the oven for about 40 minutes. That's your preference. You're going to need 2 amaretto or ginger snap cookies. You need 1 egg yolk. You need 3 tablespoons of chopped prosciutto, okay? You need 1½ cups of Parmesan Romano cheese. Now this is half, so I'm going to kind of blend these two, but I want to get 1½ cups of cheese, okay? 3 tablespoons of chopped parsley. I've got all my herbs here from the backyard. I have parsley and sage, rosemary, and thyme. This is all, we're all going to use this later, but the parsley is going to go into the filling. You need 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg or 1 grated whole nutmeg, and you need a little bit of salt. So that's going to be the potato filling. The pasta recipe is 1 cup of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of semolina flour. And this flour you can pick up at some novelty grocery stores or Whole Foods, places like that. And for me, I just ordered on Amazon because I can't find it around here. Okay, and it's just a finer flour. It's used in pastas, homemade pastas, and in pizzas, and it's very, very good. It gives the dough a little bit more texture. It's not as doughy as just flour and water, because that's really all pasta is. It's flour, egg, and water. That's the recipe. Then you need 2 eggs for your pasta. Then we're going to go to the brown butter sauce, and I'll just tell you what's in that, but we'll get to making it later. You need 1/2 sweet onion, you chop finely. You need 6 juniper berries. This too, just soon order them because you probably won't find them in the store. You need 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter. You need rosemary, thyme, parsley, and sage. Okay, and we'll make the brown butter sauce at the very end. Now we're ready to mix up our sweet potato filling. Okay, so we have 2 sweet potatoes here that have been cooked, peeled, and just smashed a little bit. All right. To that, we're going to add 3 helping tablespoons of prosciutto that's been chopped up. All right. And 3 tablespoons of parsley that's been chopped. And fresh parsley, of course, is better. Can you use dried parsley? Well, yes. Will it taste the same? Probably not, but that's okay. You just use what you have. All right, so you're going to mix this up. You're going to add a little dash of salt. All right. What else do we have? Parsley or nutmeg. And remember, if you have a whole nutmeg, that's better if it's freshly ground. Just happen to be out of that right now. Okay. And then, of course, your 1 egg yolk. Whoops. Throw that in there. All right. One thing I forgot to add to my sweet potatoes was my cookie. So I'm going to take this planer and I'm just going to grate this cookie. Try not to make a massive mess. And this gives it a really good flavor between the nutmeg and the cinnamon and the ginger and the cookies. It gives the sweet potatoes a really good flavor. Okay. After you grate your cookies, then you're going to add your cheese. This is what gives it the flavor right here. So we're going to add our cheese, mix that up. And this is a filling, so it's going to be thick. You don't want it runny. Add all of our cheese. And then once we get this all mixed up, and you can do this by hand if you would like, we're going to put it in the refrigerator, and we're just going to let it chill for a little while before we fill. Okay? To make the pasta, we're going to start with 1 cup of flour. And you're saying, well, why aren't we using a bowl? Well, this is the old Italian way of making pasta. You can surely do this in a bowl if that's the way you want to do it. I kind of like to get my hands into it. So I do 1 cup of regular flour, 1 cup of semolina, just about a little pinch of salt, and I'm going to mix this together. Okay, now what you want to do is make a well before you put your eggs in, all right? So we're going to get these two mixed up pretty good, like so. All right, let's make a well. And you want to have pretty good deep sides so that the egg can sit in there, okay? So you take 1 egg, crack it. Now some people scramble their eggs before they put them in here. I just do it this way, because you can take your egg yolk like this and just squish it. See, this is good because it's, get your hands all into it. Okay? All right, so squish up your little egg, like so. And then you're gonna start just putting the flour in it. And what you're doing is you're mixing the flour, incorporating the flour into the egg. It's good to kind of keep one hand dirty and one hand semi-clean so that you can wrap around and get the flour. Okay. Just mix. And you can feel it in your hands how thick it's getting. Okay, just keep putting the flour in. And now the egg is not so runny, so you can really start mixing now. Once your egg stops running around, then just mix your flour in like so. Get your hands in it. Now, some people, you know, they have to have a recipe per se, and that's fine, but this you need to look at. And if you find that it's too dry, then you just simply add a couple, maybe a tablespoon at a time of water to get it at the right consistency. But you just need to really work at it, and I can feel it forming in between my hands, but there's still a whole lot of flour left to incorporate. So I'm still trying to get it off my fingers here. Okay. So I can look at this right now and say, yeah, I need about a tablespoon of water. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. So really what I like to do is just sprinkle. Okay, and you want to incorporate it like that, and it'll start sticking together. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to use the pasta maker. We're going to take out our dough, and you can see how pliable it is. It's nice and smooth. It's rested a little bit. Okay. All right, before I start this, let me tell you a little bit about this roller. Okay, this is a KitchenAid mixer. It's 33 years old. It's working today as it did 33 years ago. But the thing that I absolutely love about KitchenAid, other than the fact that it's so durable, is that these attachments fit any of their machines for many, many years. They don't get outdated or updated or obsolete. So this particular ravioli maker or pasta sheet I purchased like 10 years ago. So it's still fitting on my 33-year-old machine. And if I buy one today, a new attachment today, it'll still fit. So that to me is the best selling point ever, other than the fact that I just love it. All right, so this particular roller sheet is going to make just one flat piece of pasta. Okay, this is good for your lasagna and it's good for your ravioli. It's got dials here on the side, and it goes from 1 to 8. And what that does is every time you go up a number, it's going to squish it, make it a tighter dough, so a tighter sheet. So you'll see how that works out. Okay, so I'm just going to pinch off just a little bit. Keep your dough in the bag so that it doesn't dry out. If it dries out, it's just going to be awful to work with. But is it impossible? No, you just add more water to your hands and it'll work out. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece of dough and I'm going to just squish it out a little bit just so it can go through the machine. All right, you can do this with your hands. All right, so I'm going to press this on number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my machine on kind of low at the beginning. Once you get the hang of it, you can go faster. Okay, so I'm going to run this through, and look how pretty that is. I'm going to run it through, and I want to be able to make sure it's the right width. So what I'm going to do is this is called booking, and I'm just going to fold it up to where it's the width of my roller. Okay, you see that? So now what I want to do is concentrating on making this sheet longer. It's already wide enough. All right? So that's 1. We're going to move up to 2. All right, and I think I'm going to increase the speed a little bit too. All right, so now that's 3. All right, and I can already feel it in my hands getting thinner. Okay, and then I'm going to go to 4. I don't generally go past 4 for ravioli. If it's too thick, then of course it'll be too chewy. If it gets too thin, then it's going to rip and tear, and it's going to mess up your filling. All right, so that's a good sheet right there. If it's not quite wide enough, see how it's a little bit wider here on the bottom than it is at the top? All you have to do is just stretch it with your hands. It's pretty pliable, just be gentle, but you can stretch it with your hands. Okay, so I'm going to take my ravioli press here. Right. And I'm going to put some flour on the base part. All right. And then I'm going to put my sheet on top. Okay, and make sure you stretch it to where it covers the edge. Now what you can do is just kind of put it on one end and press it, and then come to the other end and stretch it a little bit. Now, don't stretch it too much because, like I said, you don't want to make any holes. All right, there you go. So then you take the mold part, which is sprayed with some Baker's Joy. I don't remember the name of it. Okay, press it down pretty firmly, and then you're going to grab the edge and pull it up. And when you do that, you'll see that you have a little indentation. All right? You take your filling, and you're just going to add about a teaspoon to each section. Now, if you put too little, well, then you won't taste it in your ravioli. And if you put too much, then it's going to tear the dough. This is just eyeball. I'm not going to tell you a teaspoon. Just kind of look at it. Okay, I can look at this one and say, well, it needs a little bit more. Okay, so we just made a second sheet, and I'm going to take this sheet and place it on top of the other one, and pressing down a little bit, making sure the edges are there. Then I'm going to take this rolling pin, and what I'm going to do, you can see the minute I start rolling it on that edge, that it starts to cut the dough, and that's exactly what you want because this is making your ravioli. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and roll the edges like so. All right, now that's your edges. Now you have a center bar here that you want to make sure you get it. And then you have your crossbars. So you take your roller and you roll those. And you can see that this roller is cutting each of the squares of the ravioli. All right, when you're finished, you just take off the edges like so. Easy enough. And just take them and kind of wrap it on the edge like that, and then they fall out. Pretty good. And then now you have your perfect little ravioli squares. Perfect little squares. And so what we're going to do is we're going to let these dry out just a little bit before we boil them. Now here's another thing you need to know about boiled pasta. Homemade pasta cooks in probably a third of the time. If a packaged pasta says 10 to 12 minutes. It's more like 3 or 4. It doesn't take very long at all because it's all fresh. There are no preservatives in this, so that's how you have your little dough. Go ahead and bake a few more, and then we're going to let them dry out a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and make our sauce. Now we're going to start with our brown butter sauce, and in a skillet you want to brown, and I just lowered my heat because I notice it's getting really too bubbly. Go ahead and melt your butter, and I don't know if you've ever used sage before, but you can take sage leaves and just throw them in there and let them brown. They'll get kind of toasty and crunchy, and this really gives the butter sauce a good flavor. But you could just pour this on top of rice, cooked rice, or cooked pasta. Let the leaves get crunchy, and then just crinkle them. It's delicious. Add a little bit of cheese. That's a dish already in itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and brown these leaves. Let them get a little toasty before I add in the other ones. Okay, once it starts browning a little bit, I'm going to add my onions. And that's about almost 1 whole sweet onion. You can see how it's turning brown already. Alright, we're going to let that simmer till it gets cooked down, so the onions are translucent. And we're going to add our 6 juniper berries. And remember, you don't eat these, so we're going to put 6 in to make sure 6 come out, okay? Because you don't eat these. It's kind of like bay leaves. It gives it a really good woodsy flavor, but you don't want to chomp into one because they're kind of bitter. So just make sure you count them. Whatever goes in's got to come out. All right. Now I'm going to add my bouquet of garnish of herbs, and remember it's 1 sprig of rosemary, 2 sprigs of thyme, and 3 sprigs of parsley. So I'm just going to throw that in there with my, we'll put kitchen string, and that is just going to bring the aromas. All the oils in the herbs are going to go through to the onions. It's going to be delicious. Okay, so this is pretty much done. You can tell the onions are brown. Remember, this is brown butter sauce. It's not burnt butter sauce, so you've got to make sure you stop when it starts turning brown. All right, then we're going to take out our little herb package, and we're going to make sure we count and get 6 of these juniper berries out. And then that is ready to pour on top of our pasta. Okay, so that's been 4 minutes, and I took one out and tested it, and it was really good. It's not crunchy, and it's not too soggy, so you kind of want to go in between. So we're going to let those drain, and then we're going to put in another batch. Okay, we're going to take our drained pasta, pour it into our bowl here, and then we're going to take our onion butter sauce and drizzle it on top like so. Okay, all that yummy butter. Now I left the sage leaves in there because we like them, they're crunchy, but if you want to take them out, that's up to you. Then we're going to add a little bit of cheese on the top, of course, and a little bit of parsley for color. And that's it. Sweet potato prosciutto stuffed ravioli. Okay, I hope you enjoy this delicious dish. It takes a little time to put together, but it's well worth it. Enjoy!